Okay, this is going to be a weekly recap from the 26th of October to the last day of October. And the week started off really strong and then it kind of got a little crappy. And at the end, I finished somewhere in the middle. I had 10 trades. Four of them were green trades. Two of these were trades where I didn't make or lose anything and I didn't include it in the stats. And this one I didn't include in the stats because I traded just a $40 position, a fifth of what I would have normally have traded. My average dollar gain was slightly larger than my average dollar loss, which helped a lot with this first trade right here. My average percent gain was better than my average percent loss, and the position sizes were around the same. And it does seem like the setups that worked out, I held longer than the setups that didn't work out. Again, not including this one in the stats that was a 21-minute trade. There were a lot of setups that I missed, and I can hope that I can continue to be more aggressive and trade the setups that work and obviously maybe be more hesitant on the ones that don't work out. Let's go ahead and go over the trades one by one. I just ended up being up $6 on the week with $1,100 of trading volume. Let's go ahead and look at the first one, which was the best trade, OWUV. Let's look at OWUV for the 26. 26 is going to be right here. So nothing too crazy, but we had a first green day right here. And as you can tell, it had a significant amount of volume. And this was a second day, so ideally it was going to continue the uptrend a bit more. And it's been holding itself, and then it had this one big day right here where it just sold off. The 26 is going to be this first day right here. I guess I'll just highlight it from that point since it seems like it didn't really trade that much. I was in at 934 at 573, and this was a morning range breakout second day. So 934 at 573. Right here is when I got in at 573. Why did I get in? Again, we had that first green day. Let me just bring it back to the way it was right here. First green day, and the high of this first green day was 621. We opened the next day, not necessarily above the 621 level, but it started to trade in this little range right here. We had like a wick and then a bottom of a candle. And then at this point, this was trading a bit higher than this previous range. And it looks like it was going to break this 575 level and ideally be a morning spike. And then best case scenario, breaks the previous day high immediately and it continues to uptrend and be a really nice second green day. And again, that's why I got in at 573 at 934, and I did get out 936 at 647. That was my average, so I got out right here at 647. This was my average, so I sold, I believe, in two pieces. And yeah, this one was just a very big spike. It just happened immediately, super quickly, which is why I got out of it super quickly as well. And this was a pretty nice sell. It was very profitable. And it turned out that a lot of this was probably influenced because Tim Sykes issued a buy alert. And that could have, been why he just uptrended so much. And just to go over it briefly, TXTM on the 26th also offered the same setup right here. The, morning range breakout right here. Not really the same in terms of the daily chart, but it was also uptrending, and this was also a nice one. It did the same thing, and this one wasn't influenced by, a buy alert from a big trader or anything like that. So this was another example, and that was a good trade for what it was. Let's look at the next trade, which is GTII on the 26th. Very crazy one. 26 is right here. Yeah, this is back before it broke above the 175-ish range, and it got really crazy. 26 is going to be right here, and I'll just highlight the whole entire day for now. I was in at 1119 at 145, and this was a symmetrical triangle. I'll zoom in a bit more. 1119 was right here, and I got in at 145. So why did I get in this? I saw what looked like a symmetrical triangle, and it was breaking like the upper part of it, and that was looking like a bullish setup. This might not be like a perfect trend line as to how I had it because I'm not looking at the original charts, but I'm gonna guess it was something like this. And just to go over it again, I was in at 11.19, 145. So 11.19 was right here. Yeah, I got in because it was breaking the upper part of the symmetrical triangle, and it looked like a bullish setup. I got out 11.26 at 149.75. So 11.26 was going to be right here. And my average was 149.75. So right around right here is when I got out. And it did uptrend. I'm not extremely sure why I got out. Maybe because of the fact that there was resistance from the day high and it just didn't seem like maybe it was going to get there. It did get there, but it didn't break above it. And it did downtrend and it traded back and forth. But I think this was a pretty good attempt for what it was. Ideally, it could have broken the day high and it could have went much higher. But I think this was a pretty good attempt for what it was. Now let's look at the big red trade. And this one really sucked, but I traded it the best that I could. Let's look at TXTM for the 27th. Right here's the 27th. So big sell-off day. It was up trading a lot over a longer period of time from the sub penny level. Yeah, the 20 sub penny level as high as over a penny, and we had a big red day. And I think I was trying to do some kind of a dip buy setup right here. Let's go ahead and highlight it. I was in at 940 at 113, and this was a morning range and previous day high breakout. So 940, 11.3. Right here is when I got in. This one really sucked. I got in right here. Why? Because the previous day high was 11.2, as you can see right around here. When I put my mouse over this day, it was 11.2, so it was trading in a range, not as nice as the other two setups that I showed. And then when it broke past it and the volume looked nice for what it was, I got in it because I thought it was going to break the morning range and then break the previous day high, and then do something like the other trade or TXTM, and this one completely failed. I got out 945 at 104 right here. This one really sucked, but I was trying to get out of the trade when it was looking like it was going to break the day low before it was actually taking out the day low at 108. But there was just too much slippage, and I just wasn't able to get filled until 104. Thankfully, it didn't just bounce back to the 11s and then uptrend. Instead, it kind of had like a little one, and then it came back and it brought itself to the lows again. Just really didn't work out, and unfortunately I got stuck in the slippage. In theory, if I were to have gotten out at 108, which could have been possible, I would have lost a lot less, but the setup still didn't work out. I just got in trouble because I was also not able to cut where I wanted to, and I had to be a part of some slippage. Let's look at the next one, GTII on the 28th. 28th is going to be right here. Let me get rid of these trend lines while I still have the chance. Right here. So a few days after it broke past this 175-ish range, it's continuously uptrending. 28th is going to be right here. Right there. I was in at 943 at 294. No, I mean 249. And this was a resistance breakout. So let's look at 943. 249. I'll zoom in a bit more. 943 was when I got in at 249, and the idea is that it was also potentially going to be something that would just break this little range right here, the resistance level of $2.50. It had a bit of a panic in the morning, and I'll actually zoom in even more. It had a bit of a panic, and then it kind of broke past VWAP, and then it went back under VWAP, and now it was above VWAP trading back and forth, and ideally it was going to break past the 250 level, which it did do, but I did get out of this one the next minutes at 246, 944. Right here I got out at 246, and I was just very nervous with this one because, it's up a lot. It's kind of crazy the way it trades, and I thought, from the price action, it was going to break under VWAP and break this 244 level and then start to panic and sell off. Obviously, it's not the case. I think the thing is, it's around the $5 level, so it's still trying to uptrend, and it's much higher than this range right here. It did work out, just not when I tried it, and that's totally fine, I think. I did say that, I wasn't happy with the way I traded this one, and the reason is that I didn't risk my level. So I essentially, again, just got in it, weak-handed, got out the red candle, and it never broke my risk level, which I'm guessing was going to be either VWAP or this little bottom right here, this 244 level, or maybe even the day low. And I just got out of it quickly, and then it did work out, obviously. So let's just see what a sell would have been if I got out at 266, because that was possible. Yeah, that would have been pretty nice, and that was totally possible. I just kind of got shaken out of it. Let's look at the next trade, which is also GTII, and this one did not work out, so a bit different from the other setup. I was in at 1025, 271, high a day, and previous day high breakout. So 1025, 271. I got in right here at 1025 at 271, so I got in it right here. And why did I get in it? Again, it was breaking the day high, which at this point is now 270. And then the previous day high, it seems like, was also 270. So it was not just breaking the day high, which is 270 here. It's also breaking a more solid level, the 270 level from the other day, the high. And the idea was that it was going to break past it and do a nice spike. I got out of it the next minute at 274.5. So right here I got out at 2745 was my average. It did break above 270 and then it just traded back and forth. Unfortunately, I just was not a part of this right here when it officially broke above it further and it got to the 290. So that one was just unfortunate, but it could have been a setup that I tried. I think this one did work out. It just didn't work immediately. So I might change this one to eventually. And then that's going to mean that I change this to a 2. Because it did work out. It's not like it just, maybe broke past 270 a little and then it sold off. It did continue to do the breakout. It just had a very long streak right here before it continued to move higher. So I think this was a good attempt, but I should have tried it again once it was looking like it was trying to break further. I'm pretty sure something in the level 2, maybe a big seller at the ask was not letting it uptrend, and then once it finally broke past the big seller, that's when it led to this, and it looks like it did take, a lot of volume right here, but not at the original, breakout point, at least once it started to actually move, so that's pretty cool. Let's look at the next one, which is going to be CYDY on the 29th. CYDY right here. Alright, so just, nothing too crazy, but it just had a big sell-off gap down day with a lot of volume. And I've seen those work out, but not recently. I might hesitate more on this type of setup. I guess it depends on what this one was ultimately. Now that I'm going over the trade, I was in at 932 at 38.03, and this was a morning panic bounce play gap down. So 932, 38.03. Right here is when I got in at 932, actually right here, 38.03. So I probably thought it was going to hold around the 38 level. Clearly that wasn't the case, and I got out of it at 933 at 37.06. Right here at 37.06. And it just didn't work out. It didn't hold where I thought it was going to. It did downtrend even more into the 36s. I did try to buy. I had an order at 36.8 when it was looking like it was trying to turn around. Didn't get filled, unfortunately, and it worked out. So at least, I was on the right track. I just didn't get in at the ultimate bottom. And I think with more aggression, I could have been a part of this one. I placed my order at 368, but I should have been faster, or at least had it at 37, which was the round number to break above once it broke under it. This is something I could have been a part of. This was another missed setup, and this one was pretty profitable. Now let's look at my practice trade. As you can see, I traded 500 shares here, almost a $40 risk level. Now I traded just 100 shares. This was my practice trade with small size. Ended up working out nicely. I was in at 941 at 40 cents, and that was right here at this 40 cent level. And this was a morning panic bounce play, VWAP breakout. So no longer the gap down morning panic bounce play, but now I was in it because it was breaking above VWAP. And I've seen a lot of them do that where, I had the panic, it bounces, it breaks above VWAP, trades back and forth, and then eventually makes a leg higher over a longer period of time. And the volume usually dries up, but I think that's what allows it to uptrend because all the heavy volume from the people panic selling or whatever, sell orders, market orders, whatever, stop losses, is now out of the picture. So it just continues the uptrend, especially when it has a gap down like it did here. I did get out at 10:03 at 4,263. So 10:03 was right here, and I got out for 42.63. So right here, 42.63. So I was around here when I got out, and it was an average. This just was when I sold my last piece, and yeah, it did do a higher low, which was ideal. And with more patience, I can do that. I can let it downtrend, and ideally, it makes a higher low, which in this case, as long as it's higher than this level, that will be ideal, especially VWAP, and then it continued the uptrend and got as high as the 45s. And this was pretty impressive for what that was. And yeah, let's just see what it would have happened if I traded an actual size, because I just kind of was thrown off with how I, got in the first setup. It failed, but then it worked a bit later and I wasn't able to get filled. And, I'm trading something I don't necessarily always do. This would have been a $13 profit, which would have been cool. And yeah, so plenty of opportunity. I just wasn't able to really capitalize on everything. Let's look at SYXX on the 29th. Right here. Kind of similar to CYDY, but it's not like a gap down. It's just selling off really hard, especially under the 1 cent level with a lot of volume. I thought this one could have done something like that, like a bounce. It just didn't really do one, but in theory, it did do something here, I guess. It was in at 1038 at 48, and this was a tsunami VWAP breakout. So 1038 is gonna be right here, 1038, and I was in at 48. I think it was 47.5. Yeah, it was. Let me just adjust this. I guess that's right. All right, this is all good. Okay, let's go back to 1038, which was right here. I got in at 47.5 because, it had a panic, tsunami panic, not a gap down like the other one, CYDY, but definitely a sell-off because it broke under a penny, and now at this lowest point is at the sub-penny 35 level, which is a huge drop in terms of percent difference. And at this point, I got in it because it was looking like it was trying to break above VWAP. We did do it right here, but I thought it just tried and then it kind of failed, had a baby dip, and then now it's going to actually do it and get above VWAP. And as you can tell, it does it right here, but not necessarily when I got in. I did get out at 1040 at 47. Right here, I got out at 47. And why did I get out? I saw some really, really ugly bad price action happening, and I immediately made me get out. And yeah, that was because of the big wall of support at 46 was starting to get taken out, so I wanted to get out of it before it was too late. And unlike TXTM, I did get out in time. I wasn't a part of any slippage, and yeah, this thing worked out later, as you can tell right here, but didn't work out when I tried. And unfortunately, when it did work out, I wasn't trying it anymore. And I guess in theory, maybe an entry at this 50 level, so not as ideal as my 47 and a half sub penny entry. But I mean, I guess that was a 10% move right here, but this thing was kind of dry, and I probably shouldn't have traded it because, at the same time, GTII, right, was just uptrending like crazy, and I was just trying to dip buy something that wasn't really bouncing without any volume either. So that was definitely perhaps something I should have just done, above all of that. Let's look at the next SYXX trade, and this is now the last stock in the last day. Similar setup, tsunami bounce towards VWAP. Let's go ahead and go over the 30th, which is going to be, yep, this day right here. And this very last day right here, we got it highlighted. I was in at 951, 34 and a half, so 951 was right here, and I got in at 34 and a half. So I thought, I had another sell off, even more volume than the previous day, and we're trading lower and everything. And I thought, it was going to try to ideally break past this 35 sub penny level and then uptrend and then make a move towards VWAP, which would have been pretty profitable. And I did get out of this one at 10:04, so I held on to this one for some time, 12 minutes, 34 and a half, 10:04, which was right here. I essentially got out of it because I just got tired of how long it was taking for this one to work out. And what happened is that whenever it would look like the 35 sub penny level, the big seller at the ask was about to be taken out, it would just come back with more volume, around 2 or 3 million shares, and it kept happening enough of times that it eventually did do an attempt to get past it immediately, but then the big 35 sub penny level seller came back, and then I just brought it down, and then it got even lower. So it just did not work out at all because there was just somebody with way too many shares trying to dump their shares and being a big seller at 35 and a half. Let's look at the last trade, another attempt, and this one eventually worked out, unlike the first one, which I said didn't work out because it eventually worked out at the price point I was trading at. I was in at 1036, 32 and a half, so 1036 right here, 32 and a half. Again, same setup, trying to be a part of something that eventually, after so much selling pressure and everything, is going to make a move towards VWAP and uptrend. And as you can tell, it did not work out for a very long time. I got out at 1040, the same price point, 32 and a half. So 1040 was right here. 32 and a half is when I got out. Was there a specific reason? It looks like I held on to the trade until it looked like it was going to take out another level of support. And it didn't break down like it did the other try, but it did work out. In theory, I mean, it got as high as 38. Maybe, let's just see what a sell would have been at 35, perhaps, like right at VWAP, because, you're in it in this ultimate price point. I guess if you don't count these little wicks right here or downtrends, let's just see what a sell at 35 would have been. Because in theory, that could have been possible. It would have been a 7% gain. It seems like I didn't trade the right amount of shares. I guess I would have needed maybe 30,000 shares. I would have made a bit more, and yeah, it didn't really, bounce as much as I would have liked it to. It's not like my goal was VWAP. I wanted it to at least get to VWAP. Best case scenario gets well above it, but it just didn't do it. And I don't know if I should even look at this one anymore, even if it tries to bounce eventually, because there are other stocks like GTII that just seem to offer better setups, although that one is a bit scary to trade. That's pretty much it for this week. There were a lot of missed opportunities, but at least I got to go over them here and learn from it, so I can be less likely going, to miss them. And it's good to go over the trades just to get more experience out of it and to look at it from a different perspective, no longer being in the trade. That's all I have for this weekly recap right here.